I'm Julie Wolf, and I am going to be teaching a mock lesson on figurative language, idioms, and hyperboles today. I believe it is, I want to say 8.4, maybe 8.15 on the TEAC standards. Today what we're going to do, if this was a classroom, I would have much better artwork. But we would start off by talking about what an idiom is and also going over hyperboles. Usually PowerPoints are the best thing for that. My drawings are pretty bad. But what I would do is when the students walked in the classroom, I would have a picture up of some of these neat figurative speech sayings and idioms, such as "it's raining cats and dogs," or "I'm just hanging around," and probably let the kids kind of talk about what it means and probably do a quick write in the journal. For example, this is just the definition of an idiom, which is, I don't know why it's backwards on here, but an expression that is meaning apart from the meanings of individual words. For example, "just hanging around," or "I've lost my head." And I would have students discuss what they thought that meant. For the basis of the lesson, I would try to really incorporate history as well as English and help out with other teachers. I would also go into some more background and detail, especially with the saying "it's raining cats and dogs," and we would talk about maybe where the root of that came from and talk about that some people think it's mythology, Norse mythology. Other people think it's just that cats and dogs make a lot of noise when they're fighting or having a cat and dog fight, and hence the reason for a loud storm. A lot of kids would have fun with this. We could really kind of have some deep discussion. Probably have to cut it back after a while. The lesson would be something called Civil War slang. And what they would do is, using the following slang terms and some of their own that they could create, they would need to make a poem, a rap song, a diary entry, of course following the TEACs, which would be trying to express their ideas and feelings, keeping the readers interested, engaging a reader from the beginning to the end of the story. I'd give them a scenario. If they were living in Civil War times and they were a soldier, write a diary entry, or you could obviously make a rap song. You could write a poem, whatever works best for the student, and incorporate at least 6 of the terms that are on the worksheet, and make it pretty interesting, make it exciting. Obviously, they're going to have to use their imagination because they some of them may not have a lot of Civil War background. Hopefully, this would help the U.S. history teacher, and they could work together with this. I've done this activity before where it's just individuals, and I've also done it with just 2 people, just some teams, depending upon the class. Also, it's sometimes you can just give them a choice, either work by themselves or work with one other student. Just for example, some of the words on here are goobers, which means peanuts, snug as a bug, which means cozy. Other terms that they may have heard before, like skedaddle, may not have known where it came from, and that's obviously from a Civil War term that means run away from battle. We would talk about all different types of hyperboles, exaggeration. You, again, use the idea of idioms and incorporate those all in an imaginative story, which is a really important TEAC, especially when you're trying to write. Even for the STAR test, sometimes the topic is something students aren't familiar with, and they need to really get comfortable with using their imagination. The Civil War slang, students usually like studying the Civil War. This would be best done if you could do it at the end of 8th grade, probably, to also help the 8th grade history teacher. An example that you could give the students was, and some of the other examples I've had is just a real quick, always give students an example, and you could talk about a soldier eating goobers who had quick step and he was all played out. And all of those things, quick step is diarrhea, and kids for some reason think that's hysterical. You could talk about their possums, which is a nickname for a buddy. Hornets was bullets flying. The stories can be really imaginative, and this really makes for a funny story, and also helps the kids understand where some types of speech came from. One of the most fascinating, as a teacher anyway, would be the word sideburns came from a general, and his last name was Burnside. He happened to have really thick hair on the side of his face, and from him we actually kind of flip-flop those words and but hence the word sideburns. So when doing this type of lesson, I would give a lot of background, a lot of ideas, talk more about things like these other idioms besides slang and besides idioms and hyperboles, just figurative speech, different types of way that we talk and how important that could be. It's also kind of interesting to know that sometimes people take things very literal. For example, if someone says, I'm freezing, not necessarily did they mean they're freezing. Or if someone says, put 2 coats of paint on there are some people that really have a problem with that and think they're talking about actually coats instead of actually two coats of paint or painting it twice. So all of these are really important ideas and concepts when you're teaching English. And it can make for a really fun story. To close for closing, I would probably have some people read out loud their stories for those of them that were finished. And for homework, I would challenge each student to come up with their own idiom and to do a quick sketch of that so that we could share them tomorrow. And sometimes this is harder than others. If they have a hard time making up one, they could definitely do some research and find out some popular idioms that are used in everyday life. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.